Seven, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
All right, and welcome back to the Vegas Squares podcast. Sitting here in the man cave solo. We are still quarantined, as you all, I'm sure, know by now, unless you've been living under a rock, which would be weird at this point in time. But this is the Vegas Squares podcast. I'm here with Bobby Digital. He is. We're doing the Google Duo this time. We're trying out all the different interfacing apps because there seems to be like 70 of them now. What's up, Bobby?
What's up, baby? How's it going on?
Yeah, doing well. This one seems to be much better than the Zoom, just initial thought process, in my opinion, so far. Your voice sounds 100 times better than the last podcast.
It definitely sounds good. Plus, my phone's got good reception in here. I've always had good reception, so whatever.
Right on, right on.
Ready to go.
Well, we are sponsored by 12 Ounce Sports Radio, where you can see us. You can catch us on Twitter at Vegas Squares. You can catch our podcast there, 12ouncesports.com, and also sponsored by Seat Giant, promo code 12ouncesports for your discounted sporting events, concert, and theater tickets. And also we are sponsored by Chai Poker Charities as well. All right, so we had a kind of a little outline to talk about, a little, I guess you would say, agenda, but I would say this event we're about to speak about took a little wrinkle, or put a little wrinkle into that. I know we've been talking about the last two podcasts about UFC 249. It is now off because Dana said that his boss, the Mouse, has decided to halt plans on UFC 249.
Yeah, man, it's pretty difficult. I mean, I love Dana that he wants to get out there and he wants to still do things and he wants to hold cards and whatnot. But if the boss man up at ESPN says you have no platform to put it on, well then, damn it, UFC, it's backyard wrestling is what it is. So it's too bad. So, like you told me before we signed on, he sold his soul to the $4 billion at ESPN, and it makes it very difficult to tell them, go fuck yourself, we're going to do it anyway. So it sucks. I was ready to see some fights.
Yeah, and I was actually surprised. I know that ESPN, they've had some image issues the past few years, but I'm curious. Obviously, they let Dana promote it for as long as he did. I mean, we've been talking about it for at least a week now, and I'm curious to know who got the bug in the upper brass's ear, because, I mean, you don't usually let this thing kind of go on as far as marketing it if you have no plans to run it.
I think it had to be an ESPN thing, and they started reading that Dianne Feinstein, she's either a senator or whatever from California, was complaining like, this isn't essential. We know it's on tribal lands, but this is a bad idea, and ESPN doesn't like any bad press at all. So I'm assuming they heard that she said it was a bad idea and put the old kibosh on it.
Yeah, in an interview on ESPN, Dana White said he quote, got the call from the highest level at Disney and the highest level at ESPN pleading for him to cancel the show. A little thought I had was that when he announced that it was in California, I mean, not to get super political, but I thought that might not be the greatest idea because California is one of the epicenters, and they're in the midst of that big stay-at-home kind of stuff that a lot of us are going through right now. It's just kind of, that one kind of surprised me. The private island obviously was great. Now, Dana White has planned to move something, I guess. He hasn't really laid out the details to what he is now, quote, called Fight Island, is still going ahead. If ESPN and Disney are not cool with this fight in California, do you think they're cool with this Fight Island as it's being built?
I think that all pretty much depends on where Fight Island is and who regulates it. You know what I'm saying? If they're going to find a way to shut it down, they're going to shut it down. it's just a matter of
Well, I would
can
imagine
they
it's
get.
not an American island.
Well, yeah, true, but I mean, what if it's out in the middle of? Let me try to think. Like somewhere in American Samoa or something like that. I don't know where the hell it is. I don't know what
That's
the hell he's
American
thinking.
territory, though. My thought is,
Yeah, that's true.
like I said before, I thought is since these cruise lines who applied for the congressional bailout are not being a part of it, kind of as a middle finger to the government, unrightfully so. Why don't one of these cruise lines private islands? Why don't they host Fight Island?
I mean, it's a see, but are you even gonna? I know some fighters don't give a shit and they want to go in there and they want to fight no matter what. But some people don't want any part of this.
And that's fine,
So,
and they should speak up.
yeah, I can agree with that.
I mean, any fighter worth his weight is going to say, "Look, I'm not fighting," or I'm not. I mean, it may be a situation where there's a price tag. Everybody has a price. Who was on this card? Greg Hardy, Jessica Andrade, the main card, Gaethje and Tony Ferguson. They seem to be completely okay with it, and if they weren't, I feel like at least the co-main and the main would have had the stones to, step up and say, I don't feel comfortable. Maybe that's what Khabib did. We don't know. He obviously didn't do it publicly.
Right. Well, they did lose the co-main yesterday because Rose Namajunas said she's not going to fight because two of her family members were killed by COVID-19 or something. So she said she's just going to sit this one out for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that being a good or a bad look for Rose to fight when she's got COVID, so close to home, so to speak, in that spot. I can definitely respect that decision, but I mean, to take an inaccurate poll, I would wager to say that half the people who are, I guess, caught up in this mess probably don't believe that COVID-19 is as serious as it's being made out to be. So I don't know how that extends to the UFC world, but I'm sure Dana, could put out an APB to say, hey, if you guys want to fight, I may up the ante. Maybe they'll juice the fights a little bit. Instead of the traditional purse, the purse might be doubled or 150%. You never know.
Hey, and Dana, he's not afraid to throw some money at problems and whatnot.
Right.
And so I've got absolutely no problem with. And look, it was a novel idea. Will Fight Island happen? I don't know. Logistically, that's so difficult to put on. I love the thought of it, but it's just going to be so hard to do. I don't think it's possible.
Well, I mean, it might not happen on April 18th, which is in 9 days from this recording. But
no, that's not going to happen.
Let's face it. Right now, if speculations are true, he really doesn't have to worry about the next 4 months worth of fights that are already scheduled at their at the other arenas or venues. He literally has this on his plate, I would imagine, at this point.
Yeah. What is the next card coming up after that? Do we have that information?
I could probably look up.
Is our producer on that? Hold on.
I'll get the crack research staff on it. But yeah, I mean, we're looking at again, we have 30 more days here in Vegas. You never quite know how long these, because everybody's planning these peaks. I mean, the Southeast is kind of hitting their peaks, I guess, right now. They're planning, that we imagine that New York's hit its peak. It's hard to say, but right now, I mean, what's the calendar, at this point? Let's see, going forward, they've actually taken it down off of UFC.com. So
yeah, I just saw that.
So if you've got any events,
shit. So we don't know when the next event's going to be.
That's true. So they've already taken it down.
Yeah, that's too bad. That sucks. Well, shit. So we don't know when we're getting anything coming up.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice to hold on to that hope. I mean, right now, we've got no Masters. This is Masters week, and I'm watching golf on YouTube. I'm watching right now the 2008 U.S. Open final round with Tiger Woods winning before the last Masters, winning his last major on one leg. I don't know if you remember watching that, a decade plus ago, and every shot he took, he kneeled over in pain. And I'll never forget, I was watching it with my grandfather and my uncle, and my uncle's not the biggest Tiger Woods fan for not the reasons off the off the course, because at this point those things hadn't happened yet. He wasn't a big he's a big etiquette of the game guy, and he always kind of disliked the fact that Tiger would scream and insult people who clicked a camera. Anyways, long story short, he thought Tiger was faking the whole thing, and then the next day it comes out that he tore his ACL on like the 7th hole. It was an interesting day that day, but I've been watching final round replays on YouTube because normally I'd be watching golf right now with the Masters supposed to be being on, but you got to do what you got to do. This was the last holdout of hope for live sports, and right now the star is dead.
And I agree. I did the same thing today. I watched Tiger win last year at the Masters. I watched Payne Stewart, the late Payne Stewart. I watched him beat Lefty and then grab him by the face. He says, "You're going to be a father," putting everything into perspective. This is just a golf tournament. You're going to be a father here. Because remember, his wife Amy was within hours of having the baby or whatever, their first kid. So, yeah, man, it sucks. Not having live, and even all the sports are gone. I'm the biggest baseball fan in the world. But not even being able to see the Masters and see golf tournaments. I miss golf on TV.
Yeah.
Sucks.
Yeah, I mean, the question really is the people who already have ESPN Plus and had planned on buying this for Khabib, I mean, I got to imagine the numbers, the viewership numbers are so up in the air. I mean, we had Khabib versus Ferguson. Probably the majority of UFC fans were locked in for a pay-per-view. Cool, fine, no problem. Then we lost Khabib. Well, you might have taken a hit on actual number of people who were willing to watch that pay-per-view now. Now, we're canceling the time slot and the date. I mean, I think a lot of these places, I think Dana's biggest issue is he can't predict how many viewers he's going to get.
No, I mean and true. I tell you what, whatever comes out now, Korean baseball is talking about coming out at the end of the month. Korean baseball, if you can find a stream of it, will have thousands of people watching because people want to watch something live.
I want to bet on it too.
Yes, true. And especially out here where we are in Las Vegas, the degeneracy factor is through the fucking roof right now. People are betting on esports and stuff like that, like these iRacing that happens every Sunday. I wake up every morning or every Sunday and watch iRacing. I'll admit it.
Yeah,
I like NASCAR.
I've heard a lot about that on Twitter and stuff. I didn't know too much about it, but there's a couple people I know, friends that are into that iRacing stuff. But I mean, maybe they weren't before. Like, were you into iRacing before you were kind of forced to?
Absolutely not. I knew nothing about it at all. And then I watched the race number 1, and I saw the rigs the guys were using. They do it on like PCs or something like that, but they actually have a wheel that they use, and you can toggle stuff and whatever. I was like, man, that's pretty cool. I'm going to buy one of these.
There you go.
And they're like $1,500 to $2,000. I was like, fuck that. I'm not doing that.
Is that like the drone stuff? Because I've seen drone racing. Like they fly through a abandoned warehouse that they've created like an obstacle course.
No, you sit in like an actual gaming chair, like the esports nerds do, and you actually sit at a racing console with a wheel and stuff like that. I don't know if you can like shift like gears and stuff like that, but you actually drive with the wheel and it gives you resistance as far as the track goes and everything. It's pretty sweet.
Huh, that is an interesting. I have to check that one out. Which do you think actually caused this more to be canceled in terms of UFC? Rose dropping out or Feinstein putting pressure on UFC to reconsider, I guess. We'll put that lightly.
Oh, I think it's got to be Feinstein, man. Anytime they start talking to people from Congress, the guys at ESPN don't want to deal with any of that crap, so it's got to be Dianne Feinstein saying non-essential.
How much more shit could she give if the event went off?
I mean, yeah, true. I mean, they can't get it shut down because it's on tribal land, so they can't send the cops in there.
Right. I mean, half these states aren't even shutting churches down. You think they're going to shut down a freaking UFC event on tribal land?
Yeah, that's true. But Dana also knows, those guys can. I'm sure there's something where you can pull the rug out from under them and lose $4 billion. So Dana likes his money.
Everybody's got a boss, right?
Got that right.
Well, speaking of something trying to continue, we'll move on from UFC 249, and it's been in the news the last few days that the MLB is looking to start its season with all games being played in Arizona. Now, that to me is an obviously awesome news if it can come to fruition, but it's an interesting spot because I'm curious. I mean, Arizona's only about 4 or 5 hours from here. I doubt they're letting fans in, but if at some point they do, I mean, it would be an interesting little spot. But the fact of the matter is baseball would be back on. I think it would be an unprecedented spot where 30 teams play in one city.
Well, the good news is with Arizona, I lived in Arizona for a year, so there are lots and lots of places between the spring training sites and
Right.
Chase Field, and I'm sure the big important games would be at Chase Field and stuff like that.
Well, of
But
course.
we're going to be looking at a lot of spring training sites, just like watching a spring training game, except they'd actually count. Now, I am all for it. I would love to see baseball back. If they have to quarantine everybody at their hotels, I mean, they know the timing for this thing. People are starting to get antsy. I mean,
It didn't
it's
take as long
reaching
as I
that
thought
point.
it would either.
Yeah, people are starting to break.
Yeah, and I thought it would take maybe 6 to 8 weeks for that to happen, and I think we're right around a month, I guess.
Yeah, and we aren't breaking because we can't leave our house. We wouldn't mind leaving the house, but we just have to have something to do. And you have to entertain us. We're
Well,
unintelligent human beings.
There's nothing that's live happening. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
have cable, so I can pick and choose what I want to watch. But like, I'm not centered around a game. Like, I'm not okay. I got to be at my TV at this exact time to watch this exact programming. It's like I said, I'm watching YouTube 3 hour long, golf coverage from 12 years ago,
Exactly.
and I can watch that
did the
whenever I
same.
want.
And thank God, most of these, I do have cable, and most of these channels are actually starting putting on programming. They were still running their daily, talking head programs. I was like, there's nothing to talk about.
Yeah, that's true.
What do you guys are talking about what ifs and what happens? Who cares?
And
Show
that
me some
changes
old games.
that changes every day, so it gives them something to talk about every day.
Yeah. But I would much rather watch the 2004 ALCS
Mm-hmm.
than listen to Skip and Shannon talk about, well, what happens when football comes back? Who gives a shit?
Yeah. It
Worry about
should
that
be
when it
business
shows
as
up.
usual when football comes back.
Exactly.
Yeah, I actually,
So-
for all the shit I've given and gotten from YouTube, I've been super grateful for their time, for their programming and their app at this time right now, because I've had a few issues with specifically this podcast and uploading and a lot, and so I'd like to give a kudos to YouTube for basically having anything my heart or my mind comes across.
Yeah, they've gotten a lot better with their production and highlights and stuff like that of sporting events. You can actually find games from over a decade ago, and not just 2 or 3 plays. You can actually find entire games. So
Yeah.
that's been helpful through this. I mean, can you imagine inventing YouTube? How much money is YouTube worth? Whew.
Well, Google bought it for a few billion some years ago. So, I mean, however much Google's worth, I guess, put YouTube
worth it.
into their portfolio.
Absolutely.
Going back to the baseball season, the only thing I don't love about what I've been reading is unnamed sources. I hate when it's anonymous or unnamed sources. I tend to believe most of it's bullshit. Until someone puts their name on something, as a rapper used to say, put respect on the name. I don't buy it.
Yeah.
So the plan is to isolate players and umpires, have 30 teams, all stage games in empty stadiums around Phoenix, the ones used for spring training, as well as Chase Field, which is obviously the home of the Diamondbacks. So obviously, if no fans, there's no reason for me to go back down there. But I think that would be live sports, in any capacity, because it's outdoor. That's why I was really mostly shocked about golf too, as well. Because golf, now we can have the conversation about shutting recreational golf down, but I'm talking about professional golf. I think these are the two easiest sports to really incorporate social distancing, and obviously these two sports have the money to get their hands on enough tests to regulate this to restart.
Yeah, especially golf. You think golf wouldn't be that big of a deal because you've got the TV people, you've got the caddy and his player
And the
who can
USGA,
distance themselves, right?
the rules guys.
And then you've got what else? Rules officials, course maintenance guys. There's really not much going on golf wise to not be able to have golf tournaments, but.
And you can make concerted efforts to stay away from each other. I mean, the maintenance guy doesn't have to fix something until no one's around.
That's true. Like we said, it's the timing is starting. They're starting to realize that something needs to happen because people are antsy. You can only watch, Shawshank Redemption so many times before you're like, Jesus Christ, I need to see people doing things. Well, go ahead.
That was the thing for me. Like I had never played online video games before. I signed up for a PlayStation Plus account, and I've been playing NHL 2020 online. I can only play it for about a 5-6 hour stretch, which I know sounds huge, but I can only play it for about a 5-6 hour stretch before I'm like, I got to go do something else. And then we'll go binge watch a show, and then I'm like, I got to do something else. And then we'll go in the pool. I'm like, I got to do something else. Like, it's just like I'm getting so stir crazy. Sports, while it may be a part of that routine, at least it's an additional option for me, I guess you can say. And I'm not trying to sound selfish here, but I would be willing to bet fans of sports in these two sports, baseball and golf, probably would err on the side of if the MLB and the PGA can adapt to the social distancing guidelines, there is absolutely no reason they should be not playing right now. More golf than baseball, obviously.
Yeah, the logistic problem with baseball is there's teams and there's TV revenue and there's all that stuff. Trying to figure out how they're all going to get their money because it's billions and billions of dollars. Golf is a little bit easier to deal with because they're all independent contractors. You know what I mean? So
correct. And they're only on one network.
Yeah, different tournaments are on different networks and everything, but that can all be sorted out.
I meant one network at a time is what I meant.
Right.
But
now, baseball is a little bit more difficult because everybody wants their piece of the pie, and then there's collective bargaining and
ticket
all that
sales and revenue. Yeah, you're right. Season
everybody
ticket holders. Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's those are the most fundamental. If you and I came up with those, then there's no reason they should even be considering this quick start then at that point.
Well, also, you got to remember, if they're not playing, they're not getting paid. Now, these guys...
Well, that's not the MLB's fault. Money. That's not the MLB's fault. If the MLB had its way, they'd probably go to every stadium. But the problem is, I think the reason the MLB can't start is airline travel.
Yeah, you can't travel.
You can't. If you're going to sit here and say, why am I not getting paid, then you need to step up and say, look, I'm willing to get on a plane if that means I'm getting paid, and I'm putting myself at risk to COVID. You can't have it both ways. You can't sit here and get paid for doing nothing unless you want to put some MLB players on unemployment as well, and they can make their $700 a month plus the government, the Trump 600.
All right.
Or a week, I guess.
I haven't seen my Trump 600 yet, by the way. I'm still waiting for that price.
I haven't seen the Trump weekly 600, or I haven't seen the Trump 1200 either. I'm not holding my breath, and that has nothing to do with Trump. It just seems like I'll put my tinfoil hat on this point. I feel like they're going to try to delay it and delay it and delay it long enough so that they can just open everything up and say, look, you didn't even need it. You made it through.
Ooh, boy, that would be nasty.
Well,
ooh, nasty.
I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I'm kind of okay if we don't spend $1 trillion handing it out to everybody, but I'm also thinking if we're not opening up the country, then people are going to need it. So if we're going to open up, if there's a tentative open up date that they have, and we can avoid throwing $1 trillion to people, I'm okay with that. But if we're not on a tentative open up date, then yeah, we need to get that out.
All right, let's have a little discussion here. We're both in the gaming industry in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Yeah.
When's your first day of work? When do you go back?
July 1st.
Ooh, wow, July 1st. That's a full month. I said June 1st. Wow,
well,
July 1st. Holy Lord.
Before Spicy Sisolak shut the courses down the other day. I played golf with my boss, and that was his guess. So I'm literally just being a yes man at that point.
Yeah, I get it, and it's always nice to have the ear of people who are more in the know than we are.
Yeah, but yeah, actually, I thought when this all first went down, I'll be the first to admit I was one of the people who were like, it's a flu-like situation, and I believe like I said, I was out for an extended period of time in January. I'm probably 75% sure I had the COVID in January. And it was nothing like it's being described now. Not to downplay this situation. So my initial thoughts were, we'll probably do this for a month because, our place of business was furloughed until April 10th, which today, as we're recording, it's April 9th. So technically I would be going back to work in 2 days if our initial furlough was the actual amount of time we were going to be furloughed. So obviously we're going to go past that. I think we could go back to work tomorrow. Now, our industry might be obviously hurt by it because of travel, but in terms of my, I guess, fear of the disease, I would be willing if you told me the minute you're ready, everything would be open and ready and like nothing ever happened, I'd go back to work tomorrow.
Ooh.
But
I don't know if I don't know if I'm quite ready to take that plunge yet, but I'll probably wait, and I like that June 1st number. If they tell me June 1st is safe, I'd probably go to work then.
That's fair. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that I'm right or that my opinion is just that. I mean, I am one of the people who's generally not terrified of the virus, and I could be wrong. I mean, this virus could catch me, and I could end up being a statistic too. But I don't have those feelings at this point in time.
Yeah, and I get it, and it makes sense. And do I think COVID would kill me if I got it? No, I don't think so. But it's the loved ones. I've got a father-in-law here who's a little bit sick. He's got COPD and he's got lung cancer and whatnot. So if he gets even a trace of COVID, it's
Right.
Probably real bad news. So that's probably the only reason I would stay away.
Sure, and everybody's situation is different. I mean, like up until yesterday, I was playing golf, and the only person I interact with is my fiance, and we're pretty confident we both don't have it. So me going out, playing a very socially distant game, staying away from the people I do play with. Obviously, I don't have to. The times are prepaid. I don't have to interact with anybody. I sanitize the cart before I get on it. So I don't go to the grocery store. So I've generally been away from everything. I've actually been socially distancing. I've actually been socially distancing on accident. Not.
You're a natural social distancer. I like it.
Yeah, I've been going out, but yet naturally socially distancing. So
I get it.
It is what it is. I mean, I'm going to say July 1st. I think we'll be in the dead of summer, and if this is a virus that is killed by heat, that would June would be a good time to do it.
I can agree with that because Las Vegas in the summer, boy. Whew.
Yeah, that's no joke.
Steamy. Yes.
No joke. All right, so what do you put a percentage chance on this MLB in Arizona actually happening?
Oh God, I think it's just too difficult. Maybe 20% chance it happens. It sounds good in theory, but it's just too hard to do. There's like we were talking about with the UFC, there's just too many logistical things that don't work, and it's just too tough. Sadly.
And I'm surprised the MLB would actually think about it. I mean, like you're right, with ticket sales are generally what pay salaries, of the players. So without ticket sales, I'm surprised that MLB owners would actually want to do this. The only thing I can think of is that there's a nationally televised, television station that would be willing to share revenue with all of the other clubs. I mean, if you put every game on, I don't know, TBS or MLB Network, is there some deal in place that they'd be willing to? Because they have the 100% of the market share. You're not watching NESN and MSG or I'm sorry, Yes Network and Fox Sports Florida. You're not having to watch all these. Everybody, I wonder if there's a way for everybody to be able to watch any game they want, kind of like March Madness style. Hey, flip over to True TV and it's the Diamondbacks and Phillies, and flip over to TBS and it's Red Sox Yankees. I mean, they could figure something out. I'm sure that everybody would want to get a piece of the pie. This year, I assume that the piece of the pie is obviously going to be financially smaller because, I mean, we don't even know if we'll have a season at this point.
And I tell you what, that's actually a phenomenal idea. But now they've got 30 teams, correct?
Yeah.
They would need 15 networks. I mean, is that logistically difficult? ESPN, ESPN2, MLB Network, TBS, TNT, all those. And it's just, I mean, it makes sense. But I don't know. People are always going to cry for more. The Yankees are going to cry that the Royals are making the same money as them, I'm sure. So it's difficult. That's the only reason why I give it the old 20% chance that it happens.
Well, maybe you eliminate luxury tax and revenue sharing this year because we're already instituting company-wide revenue sharing in terms of everybody playing in the same stadiums.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense. I mean, it's just so difficult because it's unprecedented. It's never happened before. We don't know what the hell they're going to do.
I mean, I guess the question would be is if you go to all 30 teams and say, look, there's a realistic chance of having no season, would you be willing to do this if it meant you got 40% of what you expected to earn this year versus 0%?
Yeah, absolutely. Totally understand that. And how many teams say no? 100% of nothing is nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's curious because we don't know, if we can't forecast when we're going to start up again, when this country is going to start, because we don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends. I mean, I've heard anything from Easter, which is obviously probably way off base, all the way to I've heard 12 to 18 months. I mean, you can't forecast anything. I'm not saying I buy it. I'm just saying that's the spectrum I've heard from, various different places. You hear it from the news, you hear it from Twitter, you hear it from wherever you get any kind of information. Everybody's got an opinion nowadays. You can seek them all out if you want to.
12 to 18 months, boy. Can you imagine that?
I can't. Ooh. I can't do a year quarantined in my house with nothing to do outside except for walk around the block.
No, that's awful. That'd be anarchy.
A little bit. So we'll have to keep tabs on the MLB and see how this situation plays out. I think I'm with you. Yeah, I was actually going to say probably 10%. I think this would happen 1 in 10 times. I think the MLB is just trying to stay relevant right now, and that's the only thing I can think of is because we have 2 seasons that are in the middle of the season, and we have the NFL, which is obviously always king. MLB, for the majority of people in the country, if the MLB never ever came back, they wouldn't care. I mean, it's unfortunate because baseball is such a great sport, but I would be willing to say that it's the baseball fans are maybe, I don't want to put a percentage on it because I could be way off, but I think baseball fans, if you had to rank the 4 sports, they're probably 3rd of 4th or maybe 4th of 4th. In terms of
baseball is definitely, it's no longer America's favorite pastime. That's football. They own a day of the week. Mm-hmm. But the baseball fans who love baseball are so passionate about it. They'll never let it quote unquote go away.
Well, of course.
I thought you were spot on when you said they're trying to stay relevant because even during spring training, everybody's like, "Oh, cool, spring training starts," and they don't pay any attention until opening day.
Right.
It's very difficult to watch a spring training baseball game. No one gives a shit. So it's tough. It's trying to figure out what's going to happen, and nobody knows what's going to happen. So
yeah, and I'm sure if this thing is legit, they actually are sitting there, hammering this out 24/7, or at least 10 hours a day or whatever. So I'm sure they're going to figure something out. And at the end of the day, I think as the longer it goes, they will. I think these owners will take 40% of something versus 100% of nothing.
I can agree with that. I mean, and for our sake, I hope they do, because I'm getting bored. I'm getting stir crazy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is a selfish, topic to talk about because you're right. We need something, something to bet on, something to watch that's live.
That's right. I can agree.
I can't have in-play betting on something that's not actually in play.
Exactly.
So,
I'm sure my wife is getting sick of me too.
Yeah, actually, I laughed because when I heard Sisolak's speech about closing down the golf courses, my fiance was kind of upset too, and I'm like, "Why are you upset? I'm home more now." She goes, "Yeah, but those 4 or 5 hours that you go play, that's my time too."
Exactly. I mean, she can do whatever she wants, read a book, cook something, whatever she wants.
Yeah, she's got hobbies and interests, and now, I mean, we generally, spend majority of the day, and then for some part of the day, we'll go in our room. She has her video game. I have my video games. I'll have my, man cave set up. She's got her little woman cave. So every once in a while, we split up for a little bit. But most of the time, we're binge watching, we're eating, we're in the pool. We do all that together, So the golf gave us, each, since we don't have a shared interest in golf, we got our own separate time at that spot.
Yeah. Thanks, Governor.
Yeah.
Man, Sisolak is not a well-liked fella right now anyway,
And
no matter what.
Well, yeah, that was even before the golf.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he's, this isn't a political podcast, so.
Yeah, well, next caller.
Yeah, speaking of political, West Virginia pulled a 360-degree move in 24 hours. I don't know if you saw this. Yes, 2 days ago they legalized. They were the first state to legalize betting on the presidential election, which I immediately thought, boy, that is a terrible move. And I think they must have heard me because the very next day they revoked it. It got axed just as quickly as it got just as quickly as it got approved. I mean, regardless of your political belief, in a time where half the country believes the election was rigged by Russians, you cannot have sports gambling on the presidential election. Just no way.
No, it's a bad idea, and I understand trying to drum up some revenue and everything, but let's just leave that to the pros and go down a different route, please. That's a bad idea.
Yeah.
I mean, there's already too much chicanery going on, so
yeah, it's just.
Let's go ahead and leave that to the pros.
The majority of people because I don't know about your thoughts as a sports bettor, I already think there's a slight, my tinfoil hat, I already think sports are a little bit controlled and rigged. Could you imagine my people's belief on the election if you already have a sports betting mindset?
Yes. And, man, what was I going to say? Damn it. I just had something on the tip of my brain, and shit, it'll come back to me.
Okay. FanDuel was the one partnered with the West Virginia State Lottery that announced, actually, I'm sorry, it wasn't even 24 hours. It was announced and then canceled in 2 hours Tuesday night. 2 hours. So I wonder if they took any bets, or they probably didn't even get it up at that point. No pun intended.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, it's West Virginia, to be honest with you. You ever been to West Virginia?
Yeah. My paternal grandparents lived in Huntington.
Oh boy. Well, I guess they can't all be winners. I guess there's some good people in West Virginia. I just haven't seen them yet.
I'll just gloss over that. Actually, I didn't interact with a ton of people, but I really like the scenery, and they got a really cool golf course, the Greenbrier that I played. That was pretty awesome. So that's all I know about that. And when I was a kid, actually, real little kid, we went to Marshall Thundering Herd games because my grandparents lived right near the stadium. So that's my memories of West Virginia. I don't know about all the people.
Randy Moss.
Yep, I saw Randy Moss in college. It was he was just as good then as he was in the NFL.
Did you see? Oh my goodness, the guy they picked up and carried him to the line of scrimmage and they threw it. Byron Leftwich.
That was Leftwich. Yeah. No, he was a little bit more after. More after. Is that a thing?
Yeah, more after is fine.
He was a little bit later,
I mean-
I guess. I saw Randy Moss and Chad Pennington.
Ooh, Chad Pennington, all 5'9" of them.
Mm-hmm. He had a better arm in college than he did in the pros, I'll tell you that.
No, he got banged up a lot though, didn't he? I mean,
In the
Marshall's
pros, he
not
did,
really
yeah.
known. Yeah, not known for their offensive line.
In college, they were really good. They were in Division 1A or whatever FCS would be now, and they were like 2-time defending champions. They were pretty good back then, especially with Moss.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, basically, it was 4 verticals and just throw the ball to Moss. That was the offensive game plan.
And I'll tell you what, they did an awful lot of that in the NFL too. So you learn that Randy Moss was one of the best receivers ever.
That is true. I think he might have been, if he stayed mentally competent, probably would have been the best. So do you think there's a time in American history where we actually will legally be betting on, I guess, congressional, presidential, any kind of government, elections?
I certainly hope not. I mean, they find a way to screw it up as it is. So when you actually put more finances into the things, let's just go ahead and leave that alone.
Yeah, I hope so too.
It's very difficult to trust anybody as far as that genre goes. I'm not a big political guy. When you hear the left hates the left and the right hates the right, well, I hate them all. So I'm pretty much done with it.
Spoken like a true libertarian. I was going to say librarian.
Yeah. Just give me baseball and we can go from there.
All right, fair enough. Well, that's all I had. What else is going on in your sports world?
Very, very little. Just trying to get through it. Trying not to lose my mind. Hanging out with the baby and hanging out with the wife, and she's still working from home, so it's difficult. Avoiding the COVID.
It's the only thing we can do right now, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's wrap it up. Thank the sponsors, 12 Ounce Sports Radio, where we air at 12ozsportsradio.com. Obviously, you can also catch our podcast at vegassquares.com. Click the podcast tab. And also want to thank Seat Giant, promo code 12 Ounce Sports for your discounted sporting event, concert, and theater tickets. And Chai Poker Charities. You can catch them at chaipoker.net. All right, Bobby Digital, we are out.
Always good to be here, brother. Thank you for having me.
All right, and I'm Aaron. We'll catch you on the next one.